Some days it just feels like I'm running on a treadmill, you know? It's made of notifications, endless to-do lists.
Oh, absolutely.
You're constantly busy, you're jumping between meetings, answering emails, and then at the end of the week, you look back and the big stuff,
Hasn't moved an inch.
the things that actually move your career forward, they're just sitting there.
That is the classic symptom of, well, modern work, isn't it?
Yeah.
We confuse all that frantic activity with actual productivity. The problem isn't the clock. It's the system we're using.
Exactly. So today, we're going right to the source for a fix, a strategic fix. We are diving deep into Garland Colson's guide, Stop Wasting Time.
It's a fantastic toolkit.
It really is, and we want to understand not just what he suggests, but why his systematic approach really works.
And Coulson, who a lot of people know as Captain Time, he comes at this from a really interesting angle. He's got over 25 years of experience, sure, but his background is in engineering and technology.
Which is key.
It is so key because he doesn't just give you, motivational quotes. He gives you repeatable, measurable frameworks. They're designed to take human error, all our psychological biases, right out of the workflow.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to pull out that systematic knowledge. We're going to focus on 3 big ideas. First, how to shift from focusing on just urgency to what's truly important. Second, the actual tactics to beat procrastination by breaking things down. And finally, some essential strategies for controlling your environment, setting goals, and learning how to set boundaries.
Let's stop running in place.
Let's start building some real momentum.
Wow.
Okay, so let's jump right in with what Coulson calls the core mindset shift. Effective time management, he says, is all about making wise choices, not just quick ones.
That is the absolute cornerstone of his whole philosophy. I mean, think about it. We are rewarded constantly for reacting fast.
Oh yeah, answer that email in 30 seconds, you're a hero.
Exactly. Handle the latest fire drill. But when we default to reacting all the time, we spend, maybe 80% of our energy on things that have almost zero long-term impact on our actual goals. We're optimizing for speed, not for significance.
Okay, so the wise choice is to strategically put your time and energy into things that will actually make a difference. But how do you know what those things are? That's always the hard part.
And that's where his engineering background really comes into play, because he gives us tools to measure it.
Right.
The first big one is the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. Most of you probably heard of it. 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts.
Yeah, but that always sounds great in a book. The real challenge is, how do you find that magical 20%? Because I think most of us, instinctively, we feel like everything on our list is in that 20% bucket.
Right. It all feels critical. And that's where the engineering mindset is so valuable. You have to measure your inputs and outputs. Coulson says you need to actually track your time for a week. And then you have to be brutal.
Compare the time you put in to the results you got out. So like for a salesperson.
The salesperson might find out that 80% of their revenue comes from just 20% of their clients, or maybe from one specific marketing activity. The question you have to ask is, what am I doing right now that if I just stop doing it?
Would have the least impact.
Exactly. It forces you to subtract. And once you've found those high-impact tasks, that's when you bring in the next tool, the Eisenhower matrix, to manage them.
The Eisenhower matrix, right. This is where you categorize everything by importance and urgency.
It's fundamental.
Yeah.
So things that are both important and urgent, you do those now, immediate attention. But the things that are important but not urgent, that's where the magic really happens. Those are the things you have to schedule.
And that word schedule, that's the key, isn't it? It's not just a to-do list item. When you actually block out time on your calendar for, say, strategic planning or learning a new skill, you're investing in the future. You're preventing tomorrow's crises today.
Precisely. And the bottom half of that matrix is just as important for getting stuff done. Urgent, but not important. Those are things like covering for a colleague most emails. Delegate or automate them. And the stuff that's neither important nor urgent, just eliminate it. The whole point of the matrix isn't just to sort your tasks. It's to systematically shrink the amount of time you spend fighting fires in those urgent quadrants.
So shifting priority, that's step 1. But even when you know what that critical 20% is, you still have to, do it. Which brings us to the biggest productivity killer of all, procrastination.
Ah, yes. Procrastination is the psychological hurdle that all these systems are trying to help us get over. It's almost never about true laziness. It usually comes from something deeper.
Like fear of failure.
Fear of failure, perfectionism that makes a task seem so huge you can't even start. The task just requires too much activation energy, as they say.
That phrase is perfect. Activation energy. When a project just feels massive, like writing a huge report or something, your brain's default is just avoidance. So what's the tactical fix? How do you lower that barrier to entry?
Colson's advice is to turn that mountain into a series of tiny little steps, each one with a really clear action plan. So a vague task like write report becomes outline chapter 1. Then find 3 key data points for the intro. The steps have to be so small they feel almost ridiculous not to start.
And then there are all those little micro tasks, the tiny things that just pile up and create all this mental clutter, making you feel even more overwhelmed. He's got a great little hack for that.
The 2-minute rule. It's brilliant in its simplicity.
It really is.
If a task takes 2 minutes or less to do, replying to a quick text, putting a dish in the dishwasher, filing one document, just do it right then and there.
And the benefit isn't just about clearing your plate, it's about building momentum, right? You knock out a few of those tiny wins, and suddenly your brain's resistance to starting the bigger, harder stuff starts to go down. You're basically training yourself to complete things.
Exactly. And speaking of completing things, we have to talk about the huge flaw in modern work culture.
Yeah.
The multitasking myth. We've all been led to believe that juggling 10 things at once is a skill.
A badge of honor, even.
But Colson just systematically takes that idea apart. He argues that it's a massive time waster because of something called context switching.
The cost of context switching.
The research on this is totally clear. Every single time you switch from, say, writing a proposal to checking a new email, your brain has to completely reload the context of the proposal when you go back. These tiny little switches add up, they destroy your focus, and they make the final result worse.
So the alternative is what he calls focus blocks.
Strict, dedicated focus blocks.
Oh.
You concentrate fully on one thing until it's done, or at least until a scheduled break.
This all just reinforces that need for structure. You need clear goals, you need priorities, you need deadlines. You have to remove the ambiguity where procrastination loves to hide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about control. Taking control of your environment and your schedule. He lays out 3 essential strategies, and the first one is the foundation for everything else, setting clear goals.
It has to be. Without a goal, you don't have a roadmap. You have no way to even apply the 80-20 rule because you don't know what outcomes you're aiming for. And Colson is a huge proponent of the SMART goals system.
We hear about SMART goals all the time, but let's really break it down. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Why is that M for measurable? Why is that so critical from his engineering perspective?
Because measurement is what allows you to iterate. It creates accountability. If the goal is measurable, you can track your progress, you can spot problems early, and you can course correct. It's like debugging a system.
So instead of get better at communication,
A SMART goal would be something like send out weekly project updates to all stakeholders by 4 p.m. every Friday for the next 6 weeks with a documented 90% open rate. The constraints force you to act, and they let you see if what you're doing is actually working.
that specificity keeps you on track. Okay, strategy 2 is the never-ending battle, eliminating distractions. Our work environments are basically built to interrupt us.
You really are.
Yeah.
And Colson doesn't just offer soft advice here. He talks about hard environmental countermeasures. This isn't just turn off notifications. It's about designing your workspace to make distraction difficult.
So like using website blockers during your deep work sessions.
Exactly. Using blockers, having specific non-negotiable times when you batch process all your email, physically moving yourself away from your phone if you have to.
The goal is just to create these pockets of uninterrupted concentration. If you know you're only checking email at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., your brain isn't wasting background energy thinking about what might be in your inbox.
And that leads to strategy 3, which it's probably the hardest one for most people psychologically. It's the art of setting boundaries.
Learning to say no.
Learning to say no.
It's so tough because saying yes feels easier in the moment. You avoid conflict. You get to be the helpful person.
But you pay for it later, every single time. Colson frames saying no as a necessary defense mechanism for your most important asset, your time. Every time you say yes to a low-priority task or an unplanned meeting, you are actively stealing time and energy for your high-impact 20%.
So learning to politely decline or maybe delegate, it's not being selfish.
It is the highest form of time management self-care. It's what protects the integrity of your entire system.
So we have all these tools, the 80-20 rule, the Eisenhower matrix, SMART goals, saying no, but just setting this up once isn't enough, is it? It needs constant maintenance.
That's right. A system that breaks down under pressure isn't a good system. And Coulson knows that the human element requires that maintenance. So you have to use your tools, your to-do lists, your calendars, not just as static records, but as dynamic feedback loops. You're constantly tracking progress and adjusting your priorities based on new data.
And crucially, he makes the point that productivity isn't the same as just grinding 24/7. He talks a lot about self-care and structured breaks. Why is taking a break so important for a productivity system?
Because focus is a finite resource. It's like a muscle. Brief, scheduled breaks, actually getting up, walking away from your desk, they let your brain reset that focus capacity. If you just try to power through for hours, your efficiency completely tanks, and the task ends up taking longer anyway.
So a break is actually a calculated investment.
It's an investment in maintaining high-quality output. You're treating your brain like a high-performance machine that needs scheduled downtime to function at its best, which links directly to your physical health. He makes it very clear that basic self-care exercise, getting enough sleep, these aren't optional add-ons. They are prerequisites for having the focus and energy you need. If you're exhausted, no time management app in the world is going to save you. You have to maintain the operator, which is you, for the system to work.
The whole framework, really, from the big picture prioritizing down to taking a walk, it feels like a cohesive design. A system built to overcome our own human inconsistency.
It really is. I mean, if you had to summarize the one fundamental lesson from Garland Colson's approach, it's this. Time management is a discipline. It requires deliberate, measured choices. It's about rejecting that tyranny of the urgent, and consistently pouring your energy into things that guarantee you're making progress.
It reminds us that real productivity is that consistent investment in the high leverage 20%. It's making sure your energy is actually getting you closer to where you want to go, not just keeping you busy in the low impact chaos.
And you have to commit to the system, but you can start small.
And that really leads to the final thought we want to leave you with. Looking at all of Coulson's tools, what is the single most immediate, smallest action you can take to bring some of that engineering efficiency into your life right now? Is it the quick win of the 2-minute rule? Is it taking 5 minutes to map your top 3 tasks onto the Eisenhower matrix? Or is it maybe just identifying the one non-essential commitment you're going to politely say no to next week?
Just pick one.
Pick one, do it today, and start taking your time back strategically.